Record button here. All right. Hi, I'm JD Messenger, and I am the executive director of the Do More Good movement. And our mission at the Do More Good movement is to educate, empower, and amplify people who are doing good, who are purpose-driven leaders that believe, in not just shareholder and investment returns, but that all stakeholders and everyone, the country, community, society, we're all adding value equally. And so we love to promote people that are sharing purpose and profit and purpose. And so, I met this guy, Dan, and he kind of gave me his spiel, and I thought he was hysterical. Dan is, he's a former filmmaker and graphic designer and stand-up comedian. And he tried to sell some things when he was a graphic designer, and he had failure. And he went on this quest to understand, how do you sell, and what's the difference between selling and fulfilling. And he's going to talk about some of the barriers, and he just does a great job. So, Dan, off to you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Before we dive in to the whole to my presentation, just out of curiosity and just like popcorn style, what would you say in a short form is your biggest struggle with selling? Like, what's the thing that you would say is your struggle with selling? And
So,
anybody, just
yeah,
say it.
I'm going to put in fear of rejection. That's fine.
Mm.
But so feel free to put questions, raise your hand, put things in the chat box, and if you want to ask the question or
Can
share
Yeah,
I
something in the
speak
chat.
up? Is that okay since
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
following?
Please, yeah. Say
Okay.
it out loud. I
So
prefer
two
it.
of them. First one is, when will it end? And second, how can I close better? Those are
Mm,
two things I wonder and worry about.
I love it. Thank you. Um, Meryl, I love it. Finding the decision maker. Nice. Yeah. The people who can actually say yes. Who else? How to close better? Yeah, JD. Who else? Like, what do you say your biggest struggle when it comes to selling?
So I posted AI.
In what way? In what way, John?
It's the biggest impact I think on all of us, all of our lives today. It's just nuts.
Mm. Kevin, I love it. Not being a douchebag along the way. That's my favorite term. In fact, I mean, I refer to my style of selling as no douchebag selling, not being pushy. I love it. Fear of feeling like a used car salesman. Thanks, Chris. That's a good one. That's something. Get in front of the right person. These are really good, right? These are the things that I hear a lot that most people struggle with, and I hope today that I'm going to help you with some of this. And if I don't, you can let me know that I failed. Not afraid of
Just don't
that.
be a sleazy car smells salesman.
Yeah. So I'm going to just jump in here and I'm going to get into the right position. Just give me a second. I'm doing my own tech, so take just a moment before I get all of this right. La la
Kathleen
la.
said being mindful of alignment.
Mm.
Sam said speaking confidently about our pricing when they share their budget constraints.
Oh, speaking confidently about pricing. I love that. Yeah. There's that word confident. Like, everybody wants to be more confident.
One
And
more, if I can,
yeah. Yeah,
that came
please.
into my mind. How to ensure that I'm really delivering value?
Wow. See, I love that because that's the core of the people I like talking to. Because at our core, every founder, every entrepreneur, every purpose-driven entrepreneur wants to deliver value. I mean, the core of what we do, why we got into business, it's like Walt Disney didn't go, kids, that's where the money is, right? He did what he did because of love. And we love what we do. And the core of what we do is we want to bring something unique to the world, right? We want to bring value. We want to bring help. And this thing gets in the way, the sales thing gets in the way. So my name is Coach Dan Gordon, and I like to call myself the world's most reluctant sales trainer. I never wanted to get into selling in any way, in any shape, in any form. I didn't really start in sales. or in business. I'm an artist, right? I'm a creative. I started as a graphic designer, and graphic design seemed to be a way that I could make money doing my art. And the way that I got into selling is how most founders find their way in the sales role, by necessity, right? I didn't want to be a starving creative, but I also didn't want to sell in a way that I had seen selling done. And maybe some of you have had that feeling too. Like, this is like, okay, I want to sell more, but I don't want to sell in a way that I've seen selling done, right? And so in this pursuit, I eventually developed my own style of selling that I call the authentic sales framework. And the core of my experience came from teaching personal development courses. And that's me. And over the course of about a decade of facilitating over 1,000 people in these courses, I learned a thing or two about human behavior. I learned what drives us. I learned what frightens us. And I learned what either makes us follow our passion and our purpose or makes us give up. And that's why I called this session Selling with Purpose over Profit. And not that there's anything wrong with profit, because there's not, right? I mean, profit has to be in the mix or we can't do what we do. But if you're willing to express your purpose above all other things, then selling becomes simple and profit becomes the natural consequence of how you show up in the world. And more on that in just a minute. First question, why do we dislike selling? Why do we dislike selling so much? Well, the truth is we don't actually dislike selling. What we dislike is what we associate with selling, right? And moreover, we dislike who we associate with selling. Right? Some people had talked about that. So when you think of salespeople, what immediately comes to mind? Right? Do you think of the sleazy used car salesman? Right? Do you think of the arrogant luxury salesperson? Right? The person who makes you feel less than. Or do you think of that pushy retail salesperson, right? The person who just will not leave you alone. These right here are the classic tropes in the world of selling. And they are the worst of the worst. But they are so ingrained and lodged in our minds that when I train people to sell, the first and the hardest thing I have to do is deal with people's fears of becoming one of these people. And that probably worries you too. Right? Moreover, selling, by its nature, carries a stigma that because money is involved, that selling is very suspect. And some people might even say selling is evil. I mean, think about it, right? These salespeople, it's not like these salespeople are or anything like the greats of the world, right? They aren't like Dr. King or Gandhi, or they aren't like Mother Teresa, right? I mean, these people here, I mean, they're luminaries. They're good people. They were never focused on money. They were all about peace and doing good in the world, right? Well, no, not really. Because they and others like them were in a constant state of fundraising. Because that's how their work stayed alive. They were always selling, but they didn't sell a product. Like Dr. King didn't sell a 5-point plan to end racism. He sold a dream. Mother Teresa, Mr. Rogers, Gandhi, all of them, they brought in millions and millions of dollars, not with a product, but with an ideology. They made a profit with purpose. The purpose of the new thing they were bringing to the world. So how do you do that? How do you sell with purpose? I'm going to answer that. But first, I'm going to talk to you about the very first time I sold something. And this is not the first time someone bought something from me, but the first time I really sold something. And this is back in the early 90s when I was a graphic designer. And back then, my sales strategy had two very distinct parts to it. Part one was I'd walk into a business and I'd offer my services. And part two was to get rejected, go back to my car, and hyperventilate. Right? Now, look, I'm not saying it was a good sales strategy. I'm saying it was mine. So one day, I walk into this bicycle shop, Mitchell's Bikes, and it was this ratty little place. It smelled like mold and rubber tires and oil, and I was nervous as hell, as usual. I stepped gingerly into this bike shop like I was walking into a minefield, and behind the counter was Mitchell. this gruff, no-nonsense looking guy, and I was terrified of Mitchell. Right? And I just wanted to get out of there. Right? So I said, do you need any graphic design work? Just praying that Mitchell would say no so I could, go back to my car and hyperventilate. But to my shock and horror, when I said, do you need any graphic design work? Mitchell said, maybe. What do you got? And I froze. So I'm like, I design business cards. And he kind of grunted at me. He goes, I already got business cards. And he threw one on the counter. And I took a look at this card, and I just couldn't believe how ugly his business card was. And without even thinking about it, I pulled out my business card and I put it on the counter next to his. And I said, which card grabs your attention more, yours or mine? And Mitchell looked back and forth at the cards for a while, kind of like longer than a person should normally look. And he said something like, well, I guess your card looks better. And I said, yeah, when you're out there in the world and you hand someone your business card, that's the first impression that they have of your business. Now, don't you want to give them the kind of impression my card gives instead of the impression that your card gives? And Mitchell said something I'll never forget. He said, huh. And in that, huh, I realized I had just taught him something. I taught him something instead of trying to sell him something. I was there with a purpose to open his mind to a new idea that would help him in his business. And that was the first time that I realized that selling didn't have to be about convincing or pushing or proving. It's showing up with a purpose. And from that moment on, I stopped hyperventilating and I started hyper helping. I think I made about $80 on that sale, but what I learned has been priceless. Because the truth about selling is that the only difference between being one of these people and being one of these people is how you express your purpose to the world. Selling is about your relentless commitment to the great new thing that you are determined to bring to the world. Now, when you think of these people and the pushback and the resistance and the hatred that they faced, like even Mr. Rogers had haters. Mr. frickin' Rogers had haters. But they didn't worry about overcoming objections or if they're being too pushy or getting rejected. They planted their flag in what they believed in. And no matter what other people said, they never backed away from their commitment to their purpose. That's the truth about selling. Now, you may be wondering, okay, so how do I do that, right? How do I sell with purpose? That's a very good question. And the answer is something that I call breaking the fear barrier, yours and theirs, your fears and their fears. Because fear is a thing that stops you from selling your good idea to every good person who needs your good idea. And fear is also the thing that prevents people from buying your idea or your product and making their lives better with it. Those fears are the only things standing in the way of us living our lives in complete and total purpose. But where do those fears come from? Well, the truth is our fears are simple biology. Our brains are wired to be afraid of anything new. Every human being comes into the world with core programming for survival called our ego. And our ego has two settings, life or death. And our ego wants to keep us alive. So it tells us that as long as we have a roof over our head, food in our belly, and love in our heart, that's life. Don't do anything new. Because new things can mean death. Now, this is the same ego that put the fear of saber-toothed tigers and our caveman ancestors that kept us alive. Like, this is why human beings have survived in the world this long. We fear new things. And it's the same ego protecting you from having uncomfortable conversations like selling. Because to the ego, discomfort could mean death. It tells you things like, don't risk rejection. Don't ask for the sale. Don't put yourself out there. That's why those conversations feel so scary, like life or death. And meanwhile, over here with your prospect, The person you're trying to help, they're fighting their same version of the same fear. Right? They're thinking, don't make a mistake. Don't waste money. Don't screw up again and buy something that doesn't work or you don't need. Fear is how our brains are wired to keep us alive. Our brains are not wired to keep us growing and exploring and challenging ourselves. To do that, to live life more like these people, we have to overcome our natural instinct for survival. And overcoming that instinct is how we get to live our lives in purpose and help others do the same. So how do we do that? How do we overcome that instinct? What's it take? Well, it starts with one word: safety. Before we enter into a situation that feels dangerous, like selling, we must first create an abundance of safety for ourselves, a container of safety where we feel grounded. So when the other person or prospect enters into that container, they feel safe too. Their survival instinct is switched off. And that's what breaking the fear barrier is all about. It's not about outsmarting objections or memorizing perfect rebuttals or Jedi mind tricks. It's about creating enough safety in the sales conversation so that the truth can emerge for both you and your prospect. Now, I would love to spend another couple of hours walking you through all of this, but we don't have that time. So instead, I'm going to give you a really easy place to start. I'm going to give you 4 little words that have been life-changing for me when it comes to opening up authentic conversations, both sales and otherwise. And these 4 little words have been the entry point for creating safety and trust with other people. Now, if you'd like to purchase these 4 little words, just go to www.4littlewords.com. And I'm kidding, right? I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to tell you what these 4 little words are, and then I'm going to tell you how to apply them. So here they are.
Scared.
Here's what they are. Hey, I get it. Doesn't sound like much, does it? Right? Hey, I get it isn't exactly I have a dream. But I'm going to show you how hey, I get it can be infinitely valuable to you and create the safety that you need to reach the other person. Okay, so let's take a classic sales scenario. You give someone your price and they're shocked and alarmed. And what do they say? I can't afford it. It's too expensive. Like, how can you charge this much? Their survival instinct is triggered and they are now in fear of death mode, right? They are shut down. Now their fear triggers your fear. You're scared because it feels like you're losing the sale. And that puts you into fear of death mode. And the very first thing that you're most likely to do when you're feeling this is try to explain to them why it's not too expensive, right? Why they can afford it, right? You're going to try to counteract their fears with logic, but it never works because you can't beat fear with logic. That's why your fears, whatever they are, like fear of heights, fear of spiders, fear of flying, they don't make any sense, but you can't talk yourself out of them. Right? Like I used to be afraid of airplane turbulence and I get on planes. Like I studied all these things about airplanes and I knew that turbulence was not dangerous. And yet for a long time, I felt afraid. You can't talk yourself out of your fears. When you try, you only get more afraid. And why is that? Because when you focus on your fears, fear is what you feel. You can't be fear with logic. Right? When you try to do the same thing with their prospect, when you try to convince them why they shouldn't be resistant, they only get more resistant. Right? It's like trying to drag your dog into the vet's office. Like it doesn't work. So what do you do instead? You bring in some safety. You show them a little empathy. You meet them where they are. Hey, I get it. Hey, I get it. I'm asking you to make a huge investment. It's a lot of money. Of course, it doesn't feel like you can afford it. When I do this with prospects, I often share a story where I faced a similar situation, right? Hey, I get it, right? When I share a story, it lets them know they're not alone. They're not crazy, that their feelings aren't wrong. This is a story that I've shared. Hey, I get it. When I went to buy my Tesla, I was terrified. Like the last car that I bought before the Tesla was $20,000. The Tesla was $120,000. I thought I was out of my mind. And I kept saying to myself, I can't afford it. I can't afford it. I can't afford it. And so that's the first part of my story. Then I share my experience of how I moved through my own resistance and what I gained from it. I say, but I'll tell you something. Having a car that drives itself has changed my life. Instead of fighting LA traffic, Rosalind and I use that time in the car to connect, to talk, to open up with each other. In fact, we have a better relationship because of that car. And I am so thankful that I did not give in to my fears because I would have missed out on that. And that's exactly why I don't want you to give in to your fears, because you'll miss out on this. See, when you share your truth, it not only reduces their fears, but it takes away your fears too. And that's because as human beings, what we all want the most is connection and love. They're the only things that are guaranteed to take away our anxiety and make us feel safe. Connection and love. In selling with purpose over profit, here's what I want you to take away with you. The 3 ways to break the fear barrier in your next conversation. The first one is lead with empathy. Hey, I get it. When fear shows up, meet people where they are. And share a small truth. Not your pitch, but your humanness. Right? I know what that feels like. And here's what's happened to me. And then 3, invite positivity. Share your resolution and ask them, what might be waiting for you on the other side of your fear? That's it. No tricks, no scripts, no pushiness, just purpose and truth. Honesty, right? Your vulnerability. We all want the other person to be vulnerable first, but it's up to you as a founder, as someone guiding someone to engage with you so you can help them. It's incumbent upon you to be vulnerable first. And when you break the fear barrier, yours and theirs, selling stops being a transaction and becomes an act of leadership and service. Because every time you help someone move their fear through their resistance, you don't just make a sale, you make a difference. And most of all, you do more good. My name is Coach Dan Gordon, and I hope this has been helpful. Let's open things up to a little Q&A. Anybody have any questions, thoughts that they want to share about this?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I love how you wove that in there. Do more good. Yeah, you want to take your screen off so we can see people? Stop sharing.
Yeah. Actually, before I do that, just let me
yeah.
share this. If you want to connect with me, there's my email. Give me a call, night or day. I may or may not answer if it's late. And also, if you just want to chat, I'd love to. Just text the word help to that number, 213-409-8366. And I can guarantee I'm not going to sell you anything. I love making connections with people. I love helping people discover how to sell in a way that feels connected to them, not in a way that feels like you're trying to be somebody else. And I'll bring this up again, but for now, let me stop the share and just jump back in.
Thanks so much. I love it. I really, if you feel like I do, this is sort of the best sales training I've ever had, and so I'm grateful for you. And of course, I love how you bring in the authenticity and love and how we all want connection. Raise your hand if or just unmute and feel free to ask a question.
I have no question, but all I'm going to say is great. I'm retired. I'm an attorney. I've worked with now for several years, and I'm volunteering my time. But these types of programs are excellent. I'm also serving as a mentor at the teens program, so I'm dealing with younger kids and trying to encourage them on their careers. So your kind of insights in terms of sales and how you approach that are awesome. And yeah, it's all good.
I love it. Thank you.
John. Comments? Sam, you got a question? You always have a good question. You're a deep thinker.
I don't necessarily have a question. I think that was a really good perspective. I have to hop off here in just a few minutes for a 3:30 meeting, but it made me think about how to still like convert the lead to a sale when I get too nice, I get too understanding,
Mm,
too empathetic for their situation, or too lenient with my pricing to where it just doesn't even convert because there's too much empathy. What are your thoughts on that?
yeah, I really appreciate that you're bringing that word in, empathy. And I hope this doesn't sound sexist, but women tend to struggle with that more than men, generally speaking. And um, the 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 thing, let me give it to you this way. I want you to imagine that somebody that you love, God forbid, but someone that you love is struggling with the disease of alcoholism, and you see them about to go over the edge of their life. And you sit down and you talk with them and you say, look, you really got to get into rehab. You know, you're about to lose your marriage, you lost your job, you know, you're headed for the end. And they say, yeah, you know what, you're probably right. I'm definitely going to think about this and I'll get back to you on it. But yeah, I'll do it. I'm just not ready yet. Now, if you live in empathy, you're going to be like, great, you know, because you don't want to break that rapport with them. Great. I'm so glad that you're going to think about it. But what are the odds of them actually going to rehab, right? Probably pretty small. But if you think about that, whoa, their life is on the line. And it's really important. What you're going to say is something like, yeah, no, that's not okay. In fact, we're going to get in the car right now. I have a bed booked. We're going to drive there and you're checking in. Like, no two ways about it. Right. Now, I'm using an extreme example, right? Most of the time, the person that we're selling to, this isn't a life or death situation. But if you think about it on a continuum, and over here is, well, they'll decide when they're ready. And over here is they have to make that decision now. Moving this way is critical. So when they say something like, I'm going to think about it, it's incumbent on us to be just a little pushy. There's something I refer to as good pushy and bad pushy, right? And good pushy is, yeah, it's okay. You absolutely should think about it. Why don't you tell me what you're thinking about, right? And you know, and sometimes I say, are you thinking about the money? Because a lot of people think about the money. So here's the thing: when someone says, "I'm going to think about it and get back to you," they're trying to get out of the conversation. So what you're doing, you're just looping them back in. And what you'll find is they're feeling afraid. Like in that early slide that I showed you, they're feeling afraid of making a bad choice. They're feeling afraid of not just wasting money, but they're really afraid of looking in the mirror and going, you idiot, you did it again. You screwed up, right? You spent money, you knew, you know, not, you know, that's what they're afraid of. And so the more honest that you get with them, the more you kind of go down this path of vulnerability and honesty, they're going to resist it at first. But when you did what I showed you, you can create this container of safety, right? With the, hey, I get it type of thing. What happens is they open up a little bit. But the thing that we have to be as founders, as purpose-driven leaders, we've got to pull on them a little bit. We've got to get them out of the lazy boy recliner. We've got to get them a little bit uncomfortable to get the truth so we can really help them. Does that help, Sam?
It does. It does. I apologize that I do have to jump over to my next meeting, but I think that's helpful. And I wrote down a note there
It
to
was a good
encourage them to move
message
along.
Sam shared that said, instead of empathy, compassion.
Hmm.
Mm.
That's
I
a good one.
appreciate that. That's good.
Yeah.
Thanks again
Thanks for
for
being here, Sam.
it.
All right.
Does anyone else have some questions or an example?
So this is Pete. I like what you shared. I think it's really good. One of the challenges that I am facing now is competing with other service providers. Not that they're doing what we're doing, but for the target audience or the ones that are end users, they're used to giving it away, and they have a whole different model. They like convince companies to give them money. They're nonprofits or for profit, and so the end users are used to why should I pay?
Mm.
I'm used to getting things for free, and I can be empathetic all day, but that is a challenge. And so I'm like thinking to myself, this is huge value. You know, it's a good investment on your part, and whatever you're going to get for free isn't going to do the same thing. But there's the kind of the mindset of I want free, and I'm sure you've
Yeah.
dealt with this before.
Yeah. And look, uh, I'm going to keep coming back to this, to roughly the same thing, which is you got to go to where they are.
Yeah,
Where are they? I want something for free. Oh, well, that makes sense. Who wouldn't want something free? I like free things. If I could walk into a restaurant and get a free meal instead of paying, hell, I'd definitely do that. But here's what we all know about free things. Like they don't have nearly as much value as things that we pay for. Right? If you're going to take your wife out to a really nice dinner and there's a free restaurant or a paid restaurant, which one do you think is going to have the better deal? Right? All right. So look at what I'm doing here, Pete. I'm starting with where they are. It makes sense. Of course, you want
yeah,
something for free, and then we're
yeah,
gently moving them using an analogy to something that they'll agree with.
yeah. That's a great analogy.
That is a good one. I get this one a lot, right? They're not used to paying for it. And here's where, hey, I get it, you know?
Yeah.
I liked what came up in my mind was, sure, I know I can get the free breakfast at Holiday Inn, but you know what that tastes like, right? I'd
Yeah.
rather have a decent, healthy breakfast over there at the Marriott, than that, stuff that's served at the Holiday Inn.
Yeah. Exactly what continent is that continental breakfast coming from?
Yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah.
not a good one.
I'm
I
thinking
think the other
about the.
one
I'll
of the
just
other
say real
things you
quick.
said is
Go ahead,
keep them
JD.
talking. Keep them why, you know? Um,
Mm. Yeah. People want out of the conversation because they're afraid of making a mistake. It's not because they think that what you have isn't valuable. They're afraid of making a mistake. And so when you take yourself out of the picture of that, and it's hard, right? It's hard to get rejected and not feel a little bit, But when you remember that they're just struggling with their own fears, then it's a little easier to keep kind of looping them back into the conversation.
what do you
You
think,
know?
and all sales aren't the same, it's one thing to sell a widget or a car tire. It's another thing to sell, a 10,000 or $20,000 coaching program or $100,000 proposal, right? So services and products are very different. What
Yeah.
what do you think about for a service provider or a product that, you could give them a taste of the products, a free cupcake, to buy a dozen. Well, but what do you think about a service provider overcoming the fear by I'll give you, X hours, or I'll give you this part free.
Well, it definitely has to be a part of your program, right? You don't just want to like give something away on the fly because that shows that you don't have a lot of confidence in what you're selling. With me, I will have two or three conversations with someone, and it, but I reach a point pretty quickly, and it's sort of in my thinking of my process of okay, now is the time where we really start talking about you either engaging with me or not.
How about here's another example, someone you've been
Yeah.
working with for like 2 years. They keep calling you up. They're interested. They like you. They know you. They trust you, and they never buy.
Well, because you're not making it safe enough or you're not being determined with them enough. You know,
Okay.
you're here's the thing. There's a thing I call the love bank, right? And as I'm talking with a prospect, I'm depositing a lot into the love bank. I'm giving them a tremendous amount of value. I'm giving them advice, giving things that they can use to make more money. And then it's time for me to make a withdrawal. Like, hey, I've been really helpful here and it's time. It's time to make a decision. Well, I'm still thinking about it. Well, it's time to think about it now. Right? Here's where we engage. And it's clear that you need my help because you've been saying all this way. It's like you give them enough rope to hang themselves with. Like, you've said that this has been valuable. And here's what I think is really in the way, right? It's not these things that you've been saying, it's this.
Hmm.
and it comes time to break some of that rapport. It's not necessarily the bad cop, good cop thing, but it's breaking a little bit of that rapport and bringing the truth to them. Like, hey, it's time to get to rehab.
Well, when I think of clients in this scenario, it's not money. It's not value. If you, in Ernst and Young, when we were selling project, first you have to have a relationship. Okay, check. Second, they have to have a need. Okay, check.
Mm,
Then it has to be now. There has to be a time. So if we got a relationship, they've got a need, they trust that I can fulfill the need is now, then it comes down to a budget. And so I'm thinking of some examples where, I know they got tons of money. And so the real issue why they don't accept is bingo, it's fear.
mm-hmm.
It's fear. And oftentimes people confuse fear with worrying. And a worry is different than a fear. Fear gives you a negative reaction. You get upset, you sweat. But
Yeah.
most of the time, people are just worried. So if you pull out the worry, what are you worried about? Write it down. When you write it down,
Mm,
the energy goes away.
I love that. Nice.
Yeah.
The
Pete,
other thing that
I,
when you were
oh,
talking about the tough, you need to make a decision now.
yeah.
When someone was saying, I can't make a decision, we're not making a decision. And the thing I heard years and years ago that I've liked is not making a decision is a decision.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well said.
let's talk later. Let's schedule it for 6 months, a year, whatever, or
Yeah.
you call me when you're ready. I've given you everything you need. So
Nice. Thanks. Pete, I think we cut you off a little earlier.
Um, yeah, I'm not sure exactly what I was going to say. JD had such good stuff. It was kind of around that whole thing, and I think you addressed it for the most part of kind of just not forcing is too strong a word, but just kind of bringing something to closure. And I've gotten some of the reasons which are, I guess, legitimate. Like we just got a new CEO, and he's put a hold on everything. Okay,
Hmm.
all right. Well, we're ready when you are, but you can't really argue. I can't find a way to argue that one faster. You know, um, so
Hmm.
to
Why do
me,
you think
that's
he's put a hold on things?
because he wants to assess and look at all of what everyone's been doing, and make sure that you're making good decisions. And he wants his input, kind of thing. That's what but that's
Yeah.
I guess my comment is if my prospective client tells me that their CEO has put a hold on it, I guess I could ask them, why do you think he's
Yeah.
put a hold on it? Yeah,
Yeah. Why do you
okay.
think and the things that you said, well, he wants to assess it. Oh, so it sounds like there's been some problems, which is why he's stopped to assess things. What kind of problems have there been? Right.
Use it
So,
as an
right.
opportunity. Yeah,
Right.
it's an
It just keep,
opportunity.
people will
Think
share things. Go ahead, valued customer.
I was going to say, I think sometimes it goes from overthinking to taking ownership.
Say a little more about that. I like that.
Um, the person on the other end can think their way out of things. So if you allow them to overthink it, they're going to think their way out because that's easier and less risk. But if you help
Mm,
them take ownership of the decision, there's a chance they'll make a decision.
I like that. That's
Good.
really
Yeah,
good.
I like that too. Have you ever said to somebody, and maybe you have, you seem like you really have gone through all of these, hey, is there a specific budget limit that you can make a decision that would allow us to move more quickly?
Yeah, I do, but I want to make sure that I'm in the right place before I say that. Right. It's
Hmm.
like I'm going to give a dating analogy, and I hope this isn't offensive, but if someone were to walk into a bar and go up to someone else and go, "What do you say we get out of here?" Right? A little too early for that. Right.
Sure, sure.
And so, you want to make sure that you're in the right place in the conversation to have that conversation, to say that, meaning that the value is there, the rapport is there, the connection is there, so that when you ask that question, it feels like you're helping them, not just trying to get something from them.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes a lot of
Adam
sense.
has a question.
Yeah, Adam, what do you got?
No, so in all transparency, Dan and I actually work together and we do a workshop every week on the sales topic. But Pete, another kind of add-on to that is Fantastic. I love the fact that your CEO wants to be engaged. When do you think you can set up some time for me to walk through what we're going to do with him? Right. And that way, then you, number one, you get the FaceTime with that C-suite. And two, you have the opportunity to not have your solution come through a intermediary, but rather you directly providing it to the person who ultimately can make the decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
That's
it's good. Do you think that person who I'm dealing with is going to be threatened by that in any way?
They shouldn't be, right?
Yeah.
Because what you're trying to do is you've already assessed and they believe that you are helping them solve a problem. So by bringing that solution to their new leader, they're showing initiative, they're showing drive, and they're showing that they believe in what they're doing. And provided you succeed, it just will make them look good.
And the
well,
other part of that is, I really like that, Adam. The other part of that is that the sales conversation was essentially over when they said that, right? So this is another shot at keeping the conversation going.
and the flip side is that if they're acting as a gatekeeper, then there's something wrong. Okay. Either they're insecure or they're insincere, but there's an issue there.
Yeah.
And so, in my opinion, there's some kind of incongruency. If they say they like you, they want you, but they're not ready to take you up the pole, or there's an issue there that you got to sort out and get around because that's not good.
Yeah. No, that's a
Like
great
Adam
point,
said, they
JD.
should be proud to and feel, this is important. So there's some sort of fear or insecurity you got to figure out there if they're blocking it.
All
And it
right.
also
Well,
susses out if they're just using that as an objection to not have to tell you no,
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
right.
And that was part of the question at the very beginning, which is how long is long enough, when you're trying to get someone to agree to purchase the services that they've said that they believe can help them.
Right. And that's what you want to keep bringing back to them and to yourself too. Remind yourself they're meeting with you for a reason. Right. It's
Yeah.
unlikely they're a sociopath and just wasting your time. They're meeting with
Right.
you for a reason. They're stuck somewhere. They're
Right.
stuck somewhere in making that choice. So you just want to gently help them unstick themselves
Yeah.
and remind them, hey, there's a reason that we're having this conversation. You need this.
Here's something when it comes to selling
Excellent.
services, which I know Pete does, branding, outstanding branding, great author, great program. Um,
Thank you.
the thing I learned when selling services with Ernst and Young is I'm going to say 70% of the sale was not about the service offering they were buying, but it was about me being a coach and an advisor to the executives,
Mm.
helping them sort out their fears, their issues, their challenges as a coach. And then
Hmm.
they love you. And then they'll buy anything from you, even if you're not good at it.
Yeah, exactly. Can you help us with this? And you're like,
Yeah,
maybe. I
yeah.
know
Hey
you
guys,
love me.
I know we're at time, but I can hang out a little longer. By the way, I popped my contact info in the chat. Feel free to book a call with me. Always happy to chat, talk, help out. My email address and my phone number is in there. Also, feel free to pop your LinkedIn in the chat too, or your contact information. Would love to stay connected.
Yes,
So
thank you
we'll
so
take
much.
the recording and we'll post it up on
Perfect.
domorgood.com. And Dan, thank you very much. Really enjoyed it. Thank you, everybody, for participating. If you're not signed up on domorgood.com, please do. We've got amazing events we're doing every week, usually something all related to business leadership, developing, your inner game, dealing with fears, wounds, vulnerability. So we talk about the inner leader and the outer leader, and we got a great conference coming up next year in May, the ROI of Why conference in Omaha, and we've got some fantastic amazing global leaders that whose names you would know and respect. And I'm not at liberty to announce who they all are right now, but it's a very impressive list of speakers. So, all right, with that, thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Thanks, JD, and thanks, Dan. That was really great. Appreciate it.
You're
Talk
Thank
welcome.
you.
soon.
It's been
Bye-bye.
great, guys. Thank you so much.